My next guest is Eesha Patel, and she's going to be discussing with us business energies and quantum leaping to success. Now, Eesha is a wonderful person, and she's absolutely full of knowledge. And Eesha is an international channeler. She's a speaker, author, and a healer. She is the founder of Origin Activation Method, a powerful multidimensional energy healing modality that is currently being taught to world-class coaches, speakers, and entrepreneurs. In the last 5 years, Eesha has helped over 10,000 people awaken and step into their purpose with abundance. Eesha now helps 6- and 7-figure transformational leaders 10 times their transformational abilities to make quantum leaps in their businesses for maximized profit, impact, and ease with Origin Activation. And I will share the link to her website in the chat directly. And I'd like to welcome to the Talking with the Experts online summit for 2022, Eesha Patel.
Hello.
Hello, Eesha. Long time no see. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me today. It sounds like you've had an incredible 3 days with all the different guests you've had on.
I have, and I've noticed that you're giving a training or a conference or something in Melbourne.
Yes, I'm actually about to finish packing as soon as I finish this talk today and then hop on a plane later in the evening.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'll pop your details into the chat in a moment, but please tell us how we can find and use business energetics and quantum leap to success.
I love it. Diving straight in. So yeah, this is really one of my areas of passion. And just to give a little bit of context, I'm sure you've had a lot of other people speak about these sort of business strategies and things like that as well. I guess for me, my journey really started off with looking at the energetic side of things, because I saw a lot of people out there that were, they were doing strategies, they were using funnels, they were doing marketing, all the standard things, which are great. I think it's really important to have those things. But one thing that I always did really differently was I always started with the frequency first. And so when I started my first business back in 2015, it was a brick and mortar studio in Perth. And one of the things I used to do is every day I went into my studio and I would ask, what is the number one thing that is required for me to do today? And so that simple question, that inquiry, is really what started my whole journey of understanding how business is always frequency. It's always energetics first. It's always the starting point to every success for me has been through that connection. So just to give you guys a couple of tips, I guess the first thing for me is really looking at knowing that when something comes into manifestation, so for example, a business, it could be something that you're manifesting, it could be a windfall of cash, whatever it is that you're putting your attention to, it always starts with the intention first. Because one of the biggest things that I realized was if you don't even have the capacity to visualize it or to even know that something is out there in the field, then how are you supposed to bring it into manifestation? And so the way that I was able to access those results that were bigger than anything I originally had imagined was by tapping into that space and asking the question, well, what else is there? What else can I expand into? And allowing my business to guide me instead of me just coming in with a plan or whatever, what to do. I personally have never had a business plan in my life, and it's fine. It's been great. I just think it's about listening to that frequency in the present moment and then responding to that to get those quantum leaps rather than following a step-by-step system or someone else's pathway to get the results that you want.
I agree. I think a manifestation is available to all of us, and we need to align ourselves with our thoughts and be intentional about what we want out of life, because the universe really does listen and give us what we ask for. So if we ask for really crappy negative things, that's what we'll get. If we always say we're broke, that's what the universe will serve us. Case in point, I've been chasing two really famous podcasters for the last 6 months, and they finally both agreed to come on to Talking with the Experts, and I'm over the moon. But I manifested it because I asked the universe to give me what I wanted. I was intentional about chasing them up and asking the universe, could it help me?
I love that.
Yeah. So I guess I know you talked a lot about quantum leaping in our previous chat some time ago, and I was really intrigued by the process of that. Can you explain a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, so I guess the number one premise behind the concept of quantum leaping is that time is nonlinear. So if you believe that everything has a cause and effect and things have to happen in a certain order, then that's the experience that you have. When you realize that you can skip a lot of the steps and just get to that end result without going through all of the like the hero's journey or whatever that people go on, you realize that you can actually move a lot faster or accelerate through certain things using the power of the quantum field. One of the key beliefs that's necessary for this is the idea that everything in the universe is actually conspiring for you rather than against you, and it's funny, like people, like you say this and it sounds sensible, but then when you actually dive into people's psyches and you look at, like I spend a lot of time, coaching very highly successful clients, 7-figure entrepreneurs. And even then, like I look at the psychology that some people are carrying, and really the difference between the person who's reached that level of success and the person who's maybe just starting out or doesn't really know, it's really that belief system and that mindset. Because the people who've gone through and actually created these incredible things in this reality, they're really at that point where they recognize they don't need to go through and learn and make the same mistakes as everybody else. There really is that concept of standing on the shoulder of giants. So you can take on that wisdom, not just from reading books and podcasts. I mean, those things are great as well, but really from the energy field, there's a certain level of evolution that we have in the collective consciousness that is available to us. If somebody else out there has already created something or has already achieved something or has already done something, that energy pattern's available for us to access. So we don't need to then go and reinvent the wheel in our businesses and in our lives all day, every day. We can draw upon that wisdom from the energy field. So we can ask to receive those downloads through our dream states, through meditations. We can receive those downloads and integrate that into our body so that we can then act as if we already have that wisdom. So say, for example, you're trying to build a business and your first milestone is maybe getting to that first 500,000, say, right? And so, well, have other people out there achieved 500,000? Yeah, of course they have. Heaps of business owners have achieved $500,000. Heaps of coaches have achieved $500,000 in a year. So it's an attainable goal, and you're not the first person to be doing it. And so knowing that wisdom is already sitting in that field, you can meditate on that and you can ask to receive that guidance through your guides, through your ancestors, through the quantum field, directly from source itself, so that you can then embody that frequency of it already being done, because it's already done. The more challenging scenarios are actually the ones that haven't been done before. And they're the ones that I find really inspiring. For example, the 4-minute mile. For a long time, people thought nobody can run a mile in under 4 minutes. And suddenly one person did it. But the best part was, yeah, one person did it and then someone else did it and someone else did it. It's like all it took was that belief system to shift. Now, heaps of people have run in under 4 minutes, and it's a crazy how it works. Like the mind, it's like we need to shift that belief system of possibility. I mean, look at Elon Musk. Like he's an eccentric character. I'm sure people have all sorts of opinions on him. But at the end of the day, he's got a vision to take people to Mars. And that's something that has never been done before. So there are people out there who are pioneering certain things, but for everyone else, you don't have to. I think that's the beauty of the field, is that you can take the bits that you don't need to pioneer because someone else has already done it. You can be grateful for it. And I think one of the biggest mindset shifts we need to have, especially in the coaching space, and I see this in mentoring and stuff as well, is that there can be this competitive streak. It's like people want to have the satisfaction of like, yeah, I did it. I've gone through the mud. I've got my scars, and look, there is definitely value in experience. I'm not saying to bypass everything. I think there's definitely value in lived experience in particularly the coaching space as well. But at the same time, it's like, if every single person on the planet right now spent, a few decades of their life reinventing the wheel for themselves, we wouldn't evolve as a human race. And so I look at the bigger picture and go, okay, cool. what are the things that I can draw upon that are already existent in my reality that maybe I can learn from somebody, I can, hire a mentor, I can read a book, I can meditate on this. What can I draw from the quantum field that's going to support this? So if somebody else took, say, 10 years to work something out, maybe I can do it in a 10th of the time. And this is what I see with my clients as well, because so my modality, origin activation, which I think we spoke about previously, it's an energy healing modality, and it's something that I created without a lot of knowledge of the industry at all. In fact, I created my modality before even being a Reiki master, before doing any of those things, which is quite ironic, and I'm glad I did it that way, because it meant that I could bring things through the field that were untainted. I didn't have a lot of belief systems for those principles to attach to, and so I created something that was very new for me. And when I did that, it took me years to explore and fully figure out, how to fully access that quantum field, how to get to the 0 point, how to facilitate healings. And all of that knowledge was guided from my guides who support me. But the best thing was, when I started guiding other people through my practitioner trainings, what took me about 7-8 years to figure out, they were doing in less than 24 months, because they had something in the field to draw upon. Of course, they had, mentoring and guidance as well. And I think that is a part of it, but it was already in the field. And so later on, when I transitioned my courses from doing one-on-one to more group level stuff, I thought at first it would be more challenging to get that many people through to that same level of achievement. What happened was, as people started doing these weekly activations inside my group, the people that came in like 2 years down the track, they were getting results in 3 months that took the previous group maybe 9 months to achieve. And so it was just the power of the collective field. As new people keep stepping in now, they're getting results a lot faster. They're getting the access to the field that we've already created. Whereas the people that joined my course maybe 2.5 years ago, when we first launched this program, I remember back then we used to spend an hour and a half on every activation, because we'd take a lot of time to get in, we'd really go deep in the work. And then maybe about, I think 10, 11 months later, just naturally, it felt like we didn't need that same amount of time. Instead of taking an hour and a half to really go in and spending like 15 minutes coming out, we were just able to get in there. And so we cut the session times down to an hour, just because we didn't need it. Like, we just didn't need that same amount of time. And every new person that came in, now we're doing the same activations in about 45 minutes, with time either side, just for like chatting and stuff. And so, yeah, I've seen that acceleration happen as a result of the field really supporting and embedding the concepts that we're bringing through. So each person that comes through now, there's going to be a point where people are going to receive the activations in 5 minutes, or less, like 60 seconds instantaneously. Like, we're really getting to that point of acceleration where we're utilizing the field rather than going through the process so much.
Yeah, and I mean, everything is energy, isn't it? Whether it's money or things that you don't think have energy. I mean, we are energy. We are just a whole bunch of energy. And if it's not channeled in the right way, then we don't get the outcomes that we want. But we get what we ask for.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, I mean, my biggest transition in the last couple of years as well has been moving beyond manifestation. And I've spoken about this on other podcasts out there as well, where, there's a lot of people focused on the manifestation side of things. What I discovered was that there is actually a space beyond that. When you talk about quantum leaps, there's only so far that'll go until you get to a point where it's not even about achieving your goals and desires anymore. It's actually just about being in service. And I think that's the piece that I care about most, because it's like I got bored of manifestation. I mean, after you get the house, the car, the partner, like, you get all the things, you go, well, what do you do now? Well, then you're available. You're actually available to serve. And I understand not everyone's at that point yet. People are at different stages of the journey. Some people are still figuring out that they can manifest things. And I think that's a really important part of the journey, because if you're transitioning from never having manifested anything before to understanding that that is a thing that you can do, then there's a real value in that journey. What happens when you get past that point, though, is you go, okay, now I know I can manifest. I know very confidently that the universe responds to my intentions and the frequency that I put out. What happens next? And I think that's the space that I'm really excited right now, because I think you can have even bigger quantum leaps in that space. On the first day of this year, I put an intention out there that I wanted to hold my Global Awakening Summit. And I said, we're going to have 1,000 registrants. I said, that's it. We're having 1,000 people. That's the end of that. I just, really set that. And on the 1st of January, everyone else is out there partying and stuff. I went to bed like on time early before midnight, didn't even stay up. I got up first thing in the morning and I get out my flip chart and I'm just planning this entire summit. I'm putting all the energy. I had a friend stay over. I kicked her out at 10 a.m. I said, I need to go meditate. You can disappear. I said, I just need to focus on this summit. And so I just put all this energy into it. And I said, I wanted to create this thing. But then what I did was also surrendered it. And I said, look, God, if you want me to do this, I will serve these 1,000 people. You just bring them to me. And so that's when I started working in harmony with the divine will. And I said, look, I'll show up, but you bring me the audience. And then I let it go, then we put out all our promos and did all the things and we got like 1,200 people register. Now, the reason why that was such a big deal for me was the previous events before that had typically been capped at around 100. So I'd gone 10x on any other event I'd ever done before. And that's what I mean by people think you need to, first you get 100 people, then you get 200 people, then you get 500 people, then, there's a slow progression. Whereas I was like, look, I'm going to skip a few steps in between. I'm going to go from 100 to 1,000 and that's the way it is. And I just did. And so the next event that we're running now, we're doing an 11-11. I want 20,000 people at that thing. I'm like, I'm not going to sit around waiting 10 years to go through that. I've just said, this is what we're doing. And I've said the same intention. I want 20,000 people to join us for this 11-11 activation. And that's just how it's going to be. And I don't know, I'll keep you posted. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'd like to hear whether it works or not. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, totally.
So I guess, how do you help people reach, through your programs, to the point where they can actually skip the steps and absorb the energy that's out there?
Well, our core program is the 5D Empire. It really is about taking people into what I call the 5th dimensional higher frequency of consciousness. And we do weekly activations that they really teaches my community how to access those frequencies for themselves. I'm a really big believer in the teach a man to fish philosophy. Instead of me doing it for people, I actually teach them how to do it for themselves. And it means that after a couple of years of being in the course, people do have all the skills they need to get out there and, tap into the quantum field to put those manifestations out there. Like usually within a few months, people do start to see results. Like I've had clients that have manifested cars, houses, partners, they've healed themselves. I see a lot of spontaneous healing in the group. Actually, it's a big part of that, because as people release those old beliefs or those old structures within their energy field, the part of their body that was holding on to that it just releases, it just heals itself. So yeah, a lot of activation work. And then occasionally for people that are ready to go a little bit faster and they want to move through and maybe even do practitioner training, then I do work one-to-one with a very select group of people as well. And that's usually what I do. And the other aspect of my work is doing planetary work. So a big focus for me is working not just with, people like individually or in groups, but actually working with collective energies. And this is something that I feel like I've really realized in the last few years that not everyone has the capacity to work with collective fields. I mean, most coaches do a lot better actually in one-on-one or small group sort of settings. Whereas for me, I've always had this vision on the actual grid lines of the earth. So when I do my work, one of the things I teach in the 5D Empires, I teach people how to access the ley lines, the grid lines, like the earth fields, the flower of life geometries. And then we do work in specific locations as well. So sometimes I'll take people out and do retreats to certain areas. Like for example, next year, it's quite likely that we'll end up doing a 777 gateway activation in Sedona. And so those types of events, they're more specific to the exact alignment happening at that time. It's in a specific location for a specific reason. And those things are, I don't even know how to put words on it. The last time I did a one-on-one, a retreat with a client, the alignments were just through the roof. Like the location was picked so specifically and intuitively guided. And when we got there, we realized that she had all these connections to that place that I didn't even know about, And I was just listening to my guidance, like, where should I take her? What should I do? And then I picked a specific place. It's only when we got there that she was like, you have no idea how meaningful this is for me. And I was like, wow, like it just kind of worked out, So yeah, it's little things like that where it's about bringing people into their higher alignment, but also in alignment with the ascension frequencies and the planetary frequencies, because I think that's where a lot of the work is right now. Yes, we can sit around, you know, going through money blockages and, you know, chakras and all that sort of stuff. But the part that really lights me up is how do we shift the whole planet's frequency? And that's what we're doing on the 1111 gateway. It's actually about the whole planet. We're going to bring together 20,000 people. And I remember in the year 2018, there were heaps of groups, not just me. Like I was running a thing myself, but there were lots of other people as well. And together as a collective, we actually shifted the frequency of the planet. And if you can Google this, in November 11, 2018, scientists actually measurably measured this phenomenon of this. They said the planet rang like a bell. It was this like mystery frequency that nobody could understand. And for 20 minutes on the 1111 gateway, the planet was literally vibrating. But the strangest thing about this phenomenon was that there was no actual like evidence of that, in the sense that that type of activity should have caused earthquakes or some, you know, some sort of tangible experience of that. No one felt a thing, and yet these waves, these vibrations were picked up all around the planet for 20 minutes on that gateway. And so I see the power of us coming together as a collective and doing this work. And that's the bit that really lights me up, because it's not just about the individual level, it's about the collective level and the planet as a whole, and knowing that we can contribute to that.
Yeah, I think the planet could really use some vibrational help at the moment. There's just so many misfortunes happening, and I don't know how we're going to change all of that negative energy that's hanging around.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing I've learned is that we can. I mean, I've been working with planetary energies for years and years. I mean, that's where my work started many years ago, was actually traveling around the globe doing planetary work. Well before I was coaching, before I was running events, any of that stuff, it was all the planetary stuff for me. And ultimately, I built the business to facilitate the planetary stuff, because traveling costs money. And I thought, well, you know, I needed a way to generate the funds to be able to then go and do the earth work. And so my coaching business was based off just a way to kind of, you know, facilitate that. Of course, it's evolved a lot in that time, and you know, and then I really got into coaching for a while, and have been really quite passionate about helping people as well. But that's how it started for me. So yeah, I guess the biggest thing for me is knowing that it's possible and that we can. Because when I started running little ceremonies in my studio, we would have literally like maybe 12, 13 people in a room, and we would focus in on a particular area or a particular frequency or some, you know, whatever galactic flow was coming through. And then, yeah, and then we would look at the news headlines the next day, and some like it would have shifted. I'm like, holy moly, you know, like there was one particular activation I remember so clearly. We did it on, I think it was I'm trying to think, it was a 4-4 or a 6-6 gateway. It was one of those monthly gateways, because I was running them every month at that time. And for that particular gateway, we were focusing in on the Nile River. And there was a whole connection with the Eridanus constellation. And I went through a whole presentation, explained all the connections galactically, macrocosm, microcosm. And then I took this group of people through this ceremony. And as we were doing this activation, we could feel all this shifting in energy, like the Nile River being completely cleared out. The next day, we see a peace treaty between Egypt and what's the country next to it? Totally lost my mind.
Jordan, Palestine.
It's the one above, slightly above it, that the Nile River runs.
Syria?
Yes. And there was some peace treaty that had just happened around that time. And I was like, that's nuts, you know, like we're sitting there, 12 people in a room doing a ceremony. Then you turn on the news the next day and we're seeing like these like peace treaties coming into place. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, you know, and it's so easy to say, oh, like, you know, it's just a coincidence. But I mean, we know what happened. Like, yeah, it was just a small group of us, but we saw the impact of our actions. Just within 3 hours, we shifted the planetary frequency through one activation. So imagine what would happen if we had 1,000 people doing this every week, or 10,000 people doing this every week. I think there's a real potential to combine forces at this time and to really come together as a group and do this work for the planet, because it's so needed right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. It's just there's so much happening. And how can we, I guess, dispel the negative energy that surrounds certain people within our proximity?
Well, look, the one thing I always teach is you can't change or fix somebody else. right? I mean, people are on their own journeys, and I think it's so important to have a level of compassion for where they're at. If somebody, you know, if you're looking at somebody and you're placing those judgments and saying, oh, well, they have negative energy, that, I mean, that may well be true. I mean, they might have a lot of negative attachments, who knows? But ultimately, it's not our job to judge that. The only person who gets to judge is God. And, you know, for me, I've really come into a space where I go, okay, how can I shift my frequency so that maybe I'm either not attracting these energies in the first place or not being affected by it? Because I think that's the sovereignty. It's like there's a real thing in the healing space, particularly, you know, people talk about being empaths and stuff, and they sit there and say, well, you know, I'm feeling negative because they have negative energy. And it's just the blame game, to be honest. I'm going to call it for what it is and say, guys, like, we are responsible for only our own frequencies. And so I look at my frequency and the people that are surrounding me, and if I'm not happy with an interaction, if I'm not happy with the way somebody's energy is affecting me, I heal that in myself. Because who am I to judge somebody else and where they're at in this stage of life? It's their soul's journey, and they have every right to go through whatever evolution that they need to go through. Of course, it's important to recognize, you know, to the point where if something is actually toxic to the point where, you know, it's affecting you, maybe there's like physical harm or emotional abuse or something like that, then really the only thing we can do in the most self-loving way is to remove ourselves from that situation in the best way that we can, you know, and really just honor our own internal state of being. Because at the end of the day, if you're really tapped into your heart space and you're really tapped into your inner center, no matter what someone else is doing or saying or how they're behaving, you can find that stillness in yourself. And I think that's where that transcendence comes in. Instead of thinking, oh, I need to fix them, or I need to cut cords with them, or I need to, you know, put up shields all around my heart so they can't get to me. It's like, well, what if you just lift your frequency into love? Because ultimately things can't attach to your energy field if your energy is just vibrating at a higher level, you know? So the best, like, if you want to say it this way, the best revenge is just transcend it, rise up, bring more love into your heart, be more compassionate, bring more loving frequency into your own being, so that even if other people are behaving in ways that you don't necessarily agree with, even if they are projecting energy into you, really the best thing you can do is send love. You know, and I know it sounds all like, you know, sometimes when I say things like this, people will say, oh, but this is just love and light bypassing and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like, you're not responsible for someone else's frequency, unless the only situation where that would change is if somebody has come to you and you're in a session with someone and there is an agreement that you're going to help them shift their energy field, then you can help them shift their energy field. Other than that, leave people alone. Like, you know, just let them be and just work on yourself, because ultimately it's your connection with the earth. It's your connection with source. It's your connection to your inner heart frequency. And if you can radiate that so bright, then that's all you need. That's really, and you know, you will see the ripple effects of that anyway. Like, me doing the work has ultimately impacted my family, but one of the biggest things I had to learn was not to impose it on them. And there were times when my parents didn't want to hear about my frequency shifts, and they didn't want to hear about my starseed connections, and they still think it's a bit weird sometimes, you know, but that's okay. Like, it's fine. You know, I've learned to love them as they are and not expect that, even that understanding or whatever from them, because it's their journey. And I think that's the piece where, if you really get that, that's that next level of evolution in your journey, where you get to be sovereign in your own frequency and just let people be.
Yep, that's really good advice. Thank you for sharing that.
No worries. I
Eesha,
hope it
where
helps
can people
someone.
find you if they'd like to work with you, or, you know, take one of your courses or programs or seminars, or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place to find me would be through my website. If you go to originactivation.com, or if you just go eeshapatel.com, I'm pretty easy to find. I'm on all the platforms. You can find me Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. My YouTube channel has a lot of really great stuff. And also, for people who are wanting to start on the journey, I have an incredible free meditation that I would love to give to you guys. I call it the 4 foundation practices. And if you go to my website, originactivation.com, you can find the download link for that. It's a really great way just to get started. So that practice is the one that teaches you how to connect to earth, how to connect to source, how to keep that central alignment. There's a couple of really great practices in there for maintaining that love frequency throughout the day as well. I find a lot of people who are sensitive to energy, they really benefit from doing these practices in particular.
Yeah, I need to learn to meditate. I can't seem to clear my head enough to meditate, unless it's a guided meditation. I find it quite difficult to do on my own.
A lot of people do say that. It is one of the most common questions they get asked. And it is why I created this as a guided meditation, because look, guided meditations, they're like training wheels. Ultimately, when you're a bit more experienced, you do want to get to the point where you can self-guide yourself through the processes. And when I first used to teach the 4 foundation practices, I would get people to do it on their own. But then all of my clients are like, Eesha, this is really hard. Can you give us a little something? And so I created this guided meditation with beautiful music in the background. You know, it's really nicely done so that you can just listen and let yourself be a bit receptive in that. It's a really great starting point. So for someone who's never meditated before, committing to the 4 foundation practice as a daily practice is probably one of the best things that you can do for yourself.
Wonderful. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me, and good luck in Melbourne.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, Rose.
Thanks, Eesha. Bye-bye.
Bye.